Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. It's me, Dezi, and you're in the place to be if you love all things magical, mystical, and mysterious. Today's video topic is one that has been flying rumors around the internet for the past week, and I decided I would like to address it since I've never talked about Annabelle on my channel. The rumors are going around that Annabelle has escaped the Warrens Occult Museum, and just even saying those words gives me chills. So I never talked about her on this channel, so today I decided it'd be a great opportunity to be able to dive into her history and kind of go over the horrific history that has to do with Annabelle and her haunting, and also address the rumors whether this is true or not. So let's get into the video. So before I talk about Annabelle, I have to talk about the Warrens. Now, the Warrens were the two investigators who actually took on the Annabelle case in real life. They were the two most famous investigators in the world for paranormal activity. Founding the New England Society for Psychic Research in 1952, they also owned their very own occult museum in Connecticut. Together, they investigated over 10,000 cases in their career. They worked closely with police, doctors, and researchers. If the police couldn't find a logical reason for something happening in somebody's home, they actually would reach out to the Warrens, and more often than not, they had found that it turned out something was paranormal going on with that family, and the Warrens were more often able to help them. Some of the more famous investigations along with Annabelle were the Conjuring Amityville Horror House, the Snedeker House that inspired The Haunting in a Connecticut book and movie. Ed said he was raised in a haunted house. Ultimately, it led him to become a paranormal investigator. Lorraine claimed to experience people's auras in connection with the deceased since the age of around 7 to 8 years old. They met when they were really young, fell in love, and got married right away. I can't think of a more perfect couple than the two of them. They were such amazing souls, and I'm really sad to say that they're actually both gone now. They both passed on, and the world will be a worse place without having them here. Now, because they were investigating thousands upon thousands of different investigations, over time they started a collection of knickknacks and haunted objects, and they decided to create a sort of museum to keep them safe from the public. So they collected these haunted items that were touched by evil, and they decided they wanted to keep them far away from the public, so they brought them home with them and put them in their basement. Now, I would definitely say that is the most brave thing I've ever heard of. I don't think I would ever do something like that. Even with loving the paranormal and being in complete awe and a little bit obsessed with it, I don't think I could ever live with something so evil beneath me. It's just not something that I could ever do. I'd be too afraid. Along with the Annabelle doll, they also had many other different items, including a conjuring mirror, an organ that plays by itself, a toy monkey with an accordion in its hands that will try to kill you after stalking you, a shadow doll that visits you in your dreams, a satanic idol, and a real vampire coffin. Now, with the history of Annabelle and her horrific story. Now, it all started back in 1970 when a mother was visiting a hobby shop and picked up this Raggedy Ann doll for her daughter Donna. Donna was in college at the time, and she was living with her roommate, and her roommate's name was Angie, I believe. And she brought her daughter this doll, and she left it on her bed for decoration. Now, over time, she noticed some strange things happening with Annabelle. Like when she would leave it on her bed, she'd go out for the day and come home, she would notice it'd be on the couch with its arms crossed. Or if she'd leave it on the couch, she'd come home and it'd be in her room on her bed with the door shut. Donna contacts a medium, and they come over and then introduce Donna to a spirit by the name of Annabelle Higgins, who was apparently a little girl who was 7 years old when she died on the property. Way back before the building was built where her apartment was, it was a field, and apparently this Annabelle died on the property. Apparently Annabelle was attached to this doll, and she wanted to stay with Donna and Angie because she wanted to feel safe and loved and cared for, and she was just attached to the doll because she just wanted to be with them. And so this made Donna feel more comfortable, and she ended up allowing Annabelle to stay with them. And this was a huge mistake, because Annabelle is not a spirit to be trifled with, and she was not a good spirit at all, and she was definitely not a little girl. Over time this would progress, and then she'd come home one day eventually and notice the doll that she had left on the couch was in her room on her bed, and noticed that the doll had blood on its hands and on its chest. After about a month of having this doll, she found notes around the house saying "help me" or "help Lou," like L-O-U. And the funny thing is that Donna actually was really good friends with this man named Lou, and she'd been lifelong friends with him. And now Lou did not like this doll, and he already had a very bad feeling from the doll since the moment that he saw it, and would constantly ask Donna to get rid of the doll. And when Donna would refuse him, he'd be frustrated. And at this point she was scared. She didn't know what to do about the doll, and it was freaking her out. So she called a priest in to help her. The priest wasn't able to help, and at that point they enlisted Ed and Lorraine Warren, and then this is when the Warrens came in. They ended up investigating the home and telling Donna and her roommate that this was an evil demonic spirit, and it was not a little girl at all. They soon found out Annabelle was not who she was saying she was. Remember back when I said there was this man Lou, and there was notes all over the house left around saying "help Lou"? He of course did not like the doll, had a bad feeling about it, and he one night actually had a dream. He fell asleep and had a dream that Annabelle was standing at the edge of his bed. She jumped up and glided along his legs and started choking him, and he couldn't breathe and ended up passing out. And in the morning when he woke up, he realized it was real. She was actually there, and he could swear on everything that that was real, and there was nothing to convince him otherwise, that Annabelle was at his bed threatening him, and he was scared. Another experience that Lou had with Annabelle was Donna and Lou were packing up to go on a road trip, and they were preparing for it, and as they were packing their car they heard this huge crash coming from Donna's apartment, and it sounded like somebody was breaking into her apartment. So Lou went up to the apartment and waited for the sound to stop, and once it stopped he opened the door and looked around, and there was nothing amiss. There was nobody there, nothing thrown about, except when he looked down, Annabelle was tossed into a corner on the floor. So Lou decides to continue looking around just to make sure he didn't miss anything, that nobody's hiding anywhere, there's nothing amiss. And as he's looking around, he has this intense feeling that someone's behind him. And as he turns to look, he sees there's nobody there, and he quickly turns back around and he starts getting this really bad pain in his chest, this intense pain. And then he looks down and his chest is bleeding, and it turns out that he had 7 claw marks across his chest. There were 3 vertical claw marks and 4 horizontal claw marks, and he said that it felt like burns, and then they healed almost instantly after that. Donna had had enough and contacted a priest and had them exorcise the space and try to get rid of the spirit, but the priest ended up not being able to do much for her and ended up referring her to Ed and Lorraine Warren. And then this is when the Warrens came into play. They ended up coming in and investigating her space, and ended up telling Donna that in fact that Annabelle was not a little girl spirit at all. It was a demonic entity, and it was attached to them, and that it was going to try to attempt eventually to kill them. Over this time that they had had Annabelle, Donna and Angie had been having dreams of her crawling up their bodies and choking them. They'd wake up with scratches on them, and they were scared at this point. I mean, wouldn't you be? I would be. They were told that when Donna wasn't around, the demon would wander about the apartment with Annabelle the doll, and it would do this with the intention of getting recognition from Donna when she noticed that it'd be in a different place than when she left it. Ed and Lorraine ended up taking the doll with them, but on the way to their home to take it back to the occult museum, they ended up nearly having a horrific car crash. According to Lorraine, the brakes and the steering wheel would not work on their excursion back home with Annabelle. So when they got back to their home, they ended up seeing that Annabelle was actually levitating in front of them. So they took it straight into the basement, into their museum, and put it into a mostly wooden case with a glass window in the front. And there she has been since. And on the front of this case, it says positively do not open. Now, for the last week, I've noticed that everyone's talking about apparently Annabelle has escaped, and I wanted to find out for myself because I obviously realize what a dangerous artifact Annabelle is, and it would be horrific if she actually did escape her encasing. So I took to the internet and ended up finding out that Tony took to his family's YouTube channel, which is Ed and Lorraine Warren's son-in-law, and he ended up stating many different things. He ended up pointing towards Annabelle's case with Annabelle behind him and stating, "Here she is. Let's put the rumors to rest, guys. I appreciate the concern. I would be concerned if Annabelle really did leave because she's nothing to play with." I know, like a lot of you guys, I was really concerned when I saw it at first as well. I'm going back into the history of where Annabelle actually came from. Annabelle is actually a Raggedy Ann doll, and the history of it is actually super creepy. The Raggedy Ann doll dates back to 1915. The story goes that a man had his daughter approach him with a rag doll, and it was a plain doll with no face, and he ended up drawing a face on the doll for his daughter. He later turned this character into an illustrated storybook for children, and over time, people started to want the actual doll, and that's how the Raggedy Ann doll came into existence. The doll was so popular, in fact, it actually entered the National Toy Hall of Fame in 2002. So that's super creepy, and it's kind of where the actual doll stemmed from, and kind of the birth of an entity being able to take on this doll. I don't know which is more creepy, the original Annabelle doll or the one from the Annabelle movie. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comment box down below. What do you find more creepy, the Raggedy Ann version or the porcelain doll version? And with that, I will see you guys in the next video, and stay spooky, guys. Hey guys, Editing Dezi here. I just realized while editing this video that I didn't do my outro. So if you guys like my videos but are not yet subscribed, make sure that you hit that subscribe button as well as the bell notification so you don't miss out whenever I post a video. I do post several times a week, every single week, all about the occult and the paranormal. And yeah, I hope you guys like this video. Give it a thumbs up, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!